Welcome everybody to another year of Hooligan Radio here on Twitch. I'm Josh. I'm joined here by Isaiah and Zach. We'll be streaming on Sundays moving forward this year in 2022, and we have a lot that we're going to be talking about here on this stream. We're going to be talking about the dark origins of some of the most heard sayings and phrases out there. Where did they come from? We're going to be playing a little game called Know Your Hooligan, where we're going to test our knowledge here on the panel of how well we know each other. And then also we're going to be ending the night with talking about the Halo TV series, highly anticipated. Are we excited for it? And what are other video games that we would like to see adapted? So we're going to be talking about a whole bunch here on the stream. If you're listening to the audio podcast version in the future, thank you very much for listening. But remember, you can always join us live here on Twitch to hear it first. Guys, how's your holiday been? It's been a couple of months since we've been here on the stream. So how are we doing? Zach, you want to go first?
We're doing great here. I'm excited to be back with everybody, with you two, and just to be back to it all. I've missed you guys. It's been a long time. It's been a good holiday. It's spending it with friends and family, of course, but it's good to be back to random things we care about, like true crime, movies, and of course, video games.
Yeah, I'm pumped. My new hobby has become podcast producer, so Josh has offloaded some of the behind the scenes responsibility to me so that he can do some other stuff for us. So I'm pumped to get started this next year and grow this podcast, dog.
Yeah, I feel like just with everything else in the world, right? The last 2 years have been really wild and have been an adjustment for everybody. And I just have this feeling that this year is going to be kind of like back to, like when we started this podcast, except we're not in Isaiah's grandmother's basement. But beyond that, I feel. Yeah, we're in our own. But besides that, I'm really excited to get started. And we're going to start right now, first episode of 2022, of course, talking about New Year's resolutions. So I just want to know, first of all, did anyone here have New Year's resolutions? Obviously, drop them in the chat for those watching or listening. I personally did have one, and that was just to procrastinate less, which has been my worst hobby ever, always. And I've had people say to me when I say that, like, Josh, you always have like a million things going on that you're doing. How do you procrastinate? And I'm literally like, the more things I have to do, the more commitments I have, the more I procrastinate all of them. So I'm just working hard to not do that. What about you guys?
My New Year's resolution is to try to walk a mile each day. But I have to work up to that because obviously I haven't been doing that especially since the pandemic. But before that, maybe getting a little bit close. So I'm working up to it. I'm at like 4 miles a week, so more than half of the week at this point in time. But some days I get super jazzed and I do like 2 miles, and then the next day I'm just gassed, bro.
Zach, what about you?
I feel like I have the typical get healthy, get more active, especially over the last few years with working remote and sort of having to be that stay in more sort of atmosphere in life. Thank you. And then, of course, I feel like the most important thing for us is to get out of this apartment. We want to move into our own home. And I think that is something that we want to accomplish this year and bring it into fruition by stating it into the world and the universe.
Absolutely.
You gotta fucking manifest it, dude. You gotta tell people you're gonna get a house so that you feel more pressure to get a house, bro.
Exactly. If I have to give myself the date of being in my car by the end of next year,
I'll live in
find
my
a
car.
house. Exactly.
So you have no choice, yeah. Another important thing when it comes to New Year's resolution is everyone always jokes about how fast they get broken. Obviously, some of the ones we talked about are more future dated, but for the ones we're working on right now, I know for myself, I'll be completely honest, I have not been the best when it comes to not procrastinating still, even this month. And honestly, I think for me, a big part of it is that I've been working from home the last couple of months, which is not my normal job. I'm not usually remote, but I have been, and it's been giving me an excuse to stay up later, sleep in a little bit later, and thus procrastinate on most of my stuff. So I'm really trying. I feel like I've already broken it, but at least with us streaming again, maybe that'll give me the motivation to get more into the swing of things. How about you, Isaiah?
Yeah, I broke, I think, for the first time because on Thursday my car broke down, so I couldn't get to the gym since then. So This is like my longest stretch of not going and doing it. I've got a secret method of watching anime on the treadmill is getting me through it right now.
So first, I have to stop you there. There is absolutely nothing better than watching anime or listening to the anime music during working out because nothing gets you more pumped up, in my
yeah, dog.
opinion.
That's how I.
Absolutely.
Well, that's that, and I'm like, oh, I want to know what's gonna happen next. I only watch the anime I'm watching at the gym. So I want. I'm like, oh, I need to
Wow.
know what
I've
episode. I want to know what's gonna happen next. I have to go to
Yeah.
the gym to find
That's
out.
a great that's a
There's
great
been several
strategy.
times where where I'm like, all right, I'm gonna try to max out this lift, and I'm like, all right, I need to put on
Put on some
My
fucking
Hero
anime
Academia or
music.
something, and just like get ready to go. And then
Yeah.
I mean, you get in the mindset, you're like, I have to do this.
I have to
Yeah,
do
it's
this.
it's movie trailers for me at the gym. I just got to turn on the classic, the Shang-Chi trailer, the Creed 2
Oh
trailer,
Oh
shit!
man.
Yeah.
whatever gets me going. So Zach, what about yourself? I know you said obviously the house one is a future date, but as far as just the overall fitness and being active, how you been doing with that?
We're gonna go 50-50 again. There's been some good days, there's been some bad days. I'm not gonna lie on that front. But I feel like the biggest thing is as long as you don't quit on it, that's the big thing for the New Year's resolution, or at least this early on, especially with it just being February. As long as you just haven't completely given up on it, I think that's at least where you need to be with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and lastly, the reason I made this an opening topic and what I was interested in your guys' opinion is that when it comes to New Year's resolutions, so when it comes to going to the gym, for example, me and Haley, my wife, actually started going back to the gym right after Thanksgiving instead of waiting for the New Year. And my mentality at that time was, I feel like if I wait until the beginning of the year, I'm gonna do it as like a thing, and then I'm not gonna do it because it's a New Year's resolution. So let's just start now. And of course, we could always be more consistent, but I feel like that actually stuck a little bit better just starting it at this random time as to where my actual New Year's resolution of this procrastination, I haven't even started working on that. So my question to you guys is, do you think the New Year's resolution has become such a cliche and such like a trope that people just set up and break that you're honestly just like better off just doing something that's not a New Year's resolution because by giving it that label, you're kind of setting yourself up for failure?
I think it's your mindset, and it's sort of different for each person. Elite. So when you think of the New Year's resolution, you have that hard date of I have till the 31st to essentially do whatever New Year's resolution I have up to whatever you deem sort of what your resolution you want to be up till then. So you sort of have that pleasure of being able to do it with guilt free, and then you're like, okay, as of this date, I'm going to make these changes. Um, where beforehand, you sort of just have to have that mindset of like I can switch on a dime, or that seems more sort of cold turkey mindset to me, where you can just sort of on the drop of the hat just be able to switch your
Yeah.
mindset or do whatever you want to do, or at least with the New Year's resolution when it gives you that date to where you can sort of prep yourself for it.
Yeah, I think to expand on Zach's point, I think if your New Year's resolution is like, I'm going to turn my life around on a dime on the first day of the year, I think that that's when most of them fail. Is like,
Yeah.
but if you're like, oh, this year, by the end of the year, I want to be able to do this, right? I think that kind of it's like instead of changing is like, oh, okay, if every single day you drink 3 Diet Cokes and you're like, tomorrow I'm not drinking a single fucking Diet Coke for the rest
Yeah.
of the year, you're gonna fail because your body, like
Yeah.
it's like a transition kind of period. But I think that if you're like, oh, okay, by the end of this year, I don't want to drink Diet Coke anymore, and you start to wean yourself off or something like that, just using this as an example, I think those are more effective. And I think that that kind of like, if you think of it as like a resolution, as like, oh, this new year is going to resolve in me being being able to hit, a mile at the gym every day and not be able to like, and be good like at it and be able to do it is completely different than being like, I'm gonna run 100 miles this first month. Like, you're gonna fucking fail, bro. And
Burn
you're gonna
out,
feel
yeah.
bad. Yeah. But if you have
Absolutely.
something, you set yourself for a goal, I think it's better than just kind of being like, like Zach said, cold turkey trying to do something. Like if Zach was like, first of the year, I'm moving out and getting my house, he would have been fucking fucked.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to sign a lease again for my apartment. I'm just going to go off it.
Yeah,
Absolutely
no.
not.
Yeah. Also, don't know if it would affect you as much down in the South, Isaiah, but do not move in the winter up here. That would be terrible.
Wow.
Do not do that in January.
Yeah.
Some people do, I guess, but I would never. Before we move on to the next topic, I got to point this out because I just realized that while you were talking, Isaiah, you had mentioned it to us off air. How about you show off this new equipment you got? It's looking really nice.
Oh, my new equipment, my new microphone.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I got one of the Shure microphones. I'm trying to upgrade my quality. It was my gift to myself there for the holidays. So if I sound a little bit crispier to everybody, that's it. Also, if I fucking don't sound crispier, it's because I haven't got the mic discipline. You'll see this on a lot of video podcasts where some of your favorite podcasters will lean back and talk. But the microphone only really picks you up really well whenever you're in the actual distance. So if it sounds a little wonky, I'm still getting used to having to talk directly into a microphone compared to having everything in my room picked up. It's actually really cool. I won't do this on podcasts, but when I'm hanging out and playing games with people, I can turn the TV on in my room and watch TV, and the people can't hear it because the mic is so directional towards my face. Yeah, so I like to throw a Twitch stream on the TV so that Bailey can hang out with me and we can watch whatever we're gonna watch, and the people in my group won't have to hear, my Twitch streamers screaming at MasterChef or something like that.
Yeah, I got I didn't do quite an upgrade with my microphone, but I had a blue microphone from back in 2018 when we started the podcast, and I've used that for everything since then. And I recently started having a problem with it. It didn't break, it just wasn't sounding as good. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna buy another one and see if it's updated. So I got this more updated version of it. It plugs in a little bit differently. My old blue microphone had like a weird plug, and it was like I had to unplug it and plug it back in all the time. So I got this new one, and even though it's not like a higher expensive microphone, just getting the new one immediately, I plugged it in and I'm like, oh, this sounds better. So it's like sometimes even if you're getting the same level of equipment, I feel like once it reaches a certain age, just go and get a new one. So, and then what are those headphones? Do you always wear those headphones?
Yeah, these are my gaming headphones. They're Steel Series, but yeah, I've been rocking these ones. I've got a pair of like studio headphones that I haven't busted out yet because some of the features that this headset has, but yeah, they look good. I think it's just the hair, man. It's what's throwing you off. I got green hair for the podcast listeners now. I look like straight out of My Hero Academia. I am Deku now.
Nice.
So I think that's what it is.
New Year's resolution for me: catch up on My Hero Academia.
Oh, dude, we'll slow boil you. You'll get like one episode a week, and then you'll catch on to an arc you really like, and then you'll rip through the rest of it. It's pretty tried and true methodology there.
All right, Isaiah, I'm going to throw it over to you for one of our most popular segments returning here on the podcast. Our top three. What's our top three for this episode?
Our top three for this episode are top three things we're excited for in 2022. I'm not gonna lie. The top threes are one of the things, bro. I love seeing what you guys come up with, and then whenever we get together, being like, "What do you mean by that?" and then being able to figure it out. We had one of those, and it's coming in a later episode on the stream come up, so I'm very excited to how we talk about that one. But top three things we're excited for in 2022. Josh, you're the starter on this one.
Well, being the movie guy of the podcast, I gotta go with a movie for my first pick, and it's actually coming out pretty soon, so I don't gotta wait too long. But my most anticipated thing for 2022 is The Batman, the newest Batman iteration. One of my favorite actors, Robert Pattinson, taking over the role. Directed by Matthew Reeves, who directed the last two Planet of the Apes movies that I loved. He also directed Cloverfield back in the day. I'm just super excited for this Batman movie. I don't know if you guys have seen anything about it or heard the hype or anything, but yeah, definitely excited for that.
100%. I'm interested. I don't know why, but it's like the Batman movies always kill me because they're such varying in quality of the ones I've seen. So I'm excited for that too. But
Batman's easily the most varying series in probably like the comic book series, I would probably say.
Yep.
Across the DC, Marvel, across the board, it's just.
Yeah, there's some of the worst superhero movies ever, and some of the best ones ever are Batman movies for sure.
Quite literally. Number one thing I think I'm excited for in 2022 is Elden Ring. It's another game from Software. It's like a Dark Souls type game. I personally am not excited to play it, but I am excited to watch it all across Twitch because, as some of you might know, the From Software games are some of the most infuriating games to play. They're very difficult, so I'm excited for Elden Ring to drop. It's like the biggest one, so I'm excited to watch some of my favorite gamers play that. So I'm going with Elden Ring as my number one pick.
Oh,
Zach, what about you?
So I got two. So number one, probably going to be World Cup 2022.
Really?
It's one of those things where it comes around every 4 years. Everyone gets really excited across the world for it, and it's a fun time. I remember when it happened a few years ago, and just bars are crazy. Everyone's crazy going on. It's on every single TV that you're going on, whether you're a soccer fan or not. And it just seems like everyone comes together for it. And
do you have a team that you're looking forward to watching play?
No, not a single one.
I just like watching all
care
of the
less
teams.
Who won. Yeah. I just like
the
being
energy
there
about it. Yeah,
exactly. The energy around it all, the people who truly care about it, and the emotions that go along with it. It's insane. And the second one for me, sort of along the same lines, and it's already currently going on, is the Winter Olympics. Having two back to back essentially is nuts in itself. And we get to have Winter Olympics right after the Summer Olympics. Pretty good time. Already watching it's just something that we keep on in the background of our apartment.
That's pretty cool. I've never been a big fan of either of the Olympics, but I get that vibe. I know that there's a lot of people who are pretty interested. Like some of the things you catch them and you're like, holy shit, that's so cool. Like I remember one year I caught, I think, is it bobsledding is in the Winter Olympics, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was so sick. I was like, what? That's so crazy. But yeah, I completely agree.
I definitely think the Winter Olympics probably has the better slate of stuff to watch, in my opinion.
But the Summer Olympics is where I want them to add all the crazy stuff like paintball and fucking spike ball and cornhole and you know those American games where we can bring home some gold.
That was a good top three. You guys can go check it out in the archives last summer.
So the second thing that I'm most excited for in 2022 is the what's it called? Sorry, we got a subscriber and I got confused. I lost my train of thought, but I'm excited for what is going to happen in the PlayStation versus Xbox super gaming war. I don't know if you guys have caught into that, but I'll probably talk about that as it continues to flesh out. But if you are interested, look it up. Look and see what's going on with Xbox and PlayStation right now.
Yeah, I don't follow a lot of the news, but I've seen some pretty wild things going on as far as buying companies out and stuff like that. So I'm excited to see what you have to say about it for sure. My number two, this one's going to be personal for me. It might be a little bit niche, but this year finally in the video game area finally marks the return of General Manager mode to the WWE video games.
Oh God, that's awesome.
My God.
They took it out over a decade ago, and to this day, I still spend hours playing wrestling video games from when I was a child because of that mode. And in WWE 2K22, I haven't played the current wrestling games in a very long time, but I heard that the last one they released, which was 2K20 in 2019, was so broken and bad that they actually stopped releasing games. And they said that they were going to kind of redo their whole identity as far as games are concerned. And this is the first one they're releasing since then. And it is one of the things that they've changed is they're bringing back General Manager mode. I'm going in with high hopes and low expectations, and if it doesn't work out, I can always just hop right back onto those old games, so that's good to remind myself. But I've literally something I've wished about for years and years, so I'll finally be buying a wrestling game on its release date, probably pre-ordering it to get to play it early. That's something I haven't done in a long time, so I'm definitely excited for that.
You still keep up with wrestling pretty well then, so you're going to know all of the wrestlers that you would be generally managing?
Yeah, I mean, I don't watch it like on TV necessarily every week, but I listen to a couple podcasts and I watch the big shows. Like I just watched Royal Rumble last week. You know, I'll watch WrestleMania and stuff. And the weird thing about it, because my time, you know, as being a wrestler, there are a handful of new guys that are people that I've met, and you know, some that I wrestled. So
That's
it's cool.
crazy. That's
Yeah,
so cool.
so it'll be
Mhm.
cool to see them, you know, in the game as well. So yeah, looking forward to that. And then my last one, another personal one to me, in a few weeks is my 1 year wedding anniversary, and we have had a slice of cake in our freezer for the whole year. So
Wow.
I'm excited to
That's
finally eat it
crazy.
because my wedding cake was damn delicious. So I'm excited to finally eat that.
I'm so mad. I'm so
It's a
mad
fun tradition.
that the world just casted me out of that wedding. I wanted to go so bad, and then it just the literal Texas froze over, and everything in between Texas and Ohio was just covered in a sheet of ice. So
Hell yeah.
when you eat that, think of me and think about how I didn't get to have it.
I will. I will.
The last thing that I'm excited for in 2022 is a pretty big topic, but I'm gonna zone in after. I like the slate for anime in 2022 is looking delicious. Specifically excited for Fire Force. Every season of Fire Force so far has made me happy. I'm very, very excited for the next season of Fire Force to drop in 2022. Because I could get the last
I
pick.
agree. Damn, I'm not gonna lie and say that my third one also wasn't probably gonna be animated related with the series coming out. To go off of that, a personal one, it would be moving out of this apartment that we sort of rumored at the beginning.
I think that's a thing all three of us are excited for. I'm
God,
very
yeah.
interested for your housewarming party
And I wish
to get the
yes,
Hooligans back together for one more hurrah for the Hooligans.
agreed, and it will be a great time, and I can only wish us all prosper in our house hunting.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
All right, well, that's going to do it for our top three. Were there any honorable mentions on this topic? I know for me personally, I only chose one movie, but with the pandemic pushing everything back, there are so many movies coming out this year, or at least that are supposed to. You got Thor, Love and Thunder with the return of Natalie Portman. She's going to be playing a version of Thor in that movie. We have Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. We have a plethora of other MCU and superhero movies coming out. Jurassic World 3 is supposed to come out this year. So yeah, just a ton going on in that respect. Anything else you guys are excited about that didn't make the list?
I'm excited. So Xbox announced that if their acquisition goes through, they're going to no longer be releasing Call of Duty annually. So I'm excited for there to maybe not be a Call of Duty release this year.
Yeah.
Which is,
Yeah,
I'm like
same.
excited for something to not happen. This is good.
Yeah. Save me
ironic.
$60. Save me for myself.
Yeah.
What about you, Zach? Anything that you had on the dock there that you didn't get to rattle off in your top three?
I don't know if I have something specific, but one thing that I'm sort of hoping for that we haven't necessarily had in the last few years, I thought, is a quality scary movie or like something along those lines. And I could be completely wrong, and there might be something out there that I've missed the last few years. And if there is, let me know in the chat or through our suggestions on Twitter, of course. But I'm looking for something again to sort of get me back into that spooky realm of things.
Zach's calling out A24 on the podcast right now. He said, "Hey guys, I need you
Make
to
another damn movie.
give me some content."
Yeah.
Well, I'll definitely be having my eye on it, Zach. So if anything comes across that's, you know, hereditary level, I'll definitely let you know.
They actually have, speaking of A24, I'm pretty sure they have a GOAT movie coming out later this year.
That
which is
already
fucking
came
insane.
out. They already
It
came
already
out.
came out? Oh, never
Lamb.
mind.
You talking about Lamb?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but Alex saw it. He enjoyed it. It's a movie about a woman who's raising a son that has the head of a lamb.
Yep, that is it. So I might have to go take a look at that, and I could be wrong with already what I'm predicting.
They're
So I think-
wilding over there. That's
Yeah, I think you
awesome.
I think it's available to rent now. All right, well, we're gonna be throwing it over to our main topic, which is Zach's topic for this episode. Zach, what do you got for us?
All right. So this week we're going to be diving into some of the origins of our most used and heard sayings that we have Some of them surprisingly have some dark origins, which we'll dive into here a little bit sooner. I know that I've already reached out to Isaiah and Josh early this week and asked what some of their most favorite common ones were that we could dive into, which we hit a few here. Um, but yeah, we're gonna go ahead and start into that. Do you guys have anything before we begin?
I think that the only one of these that I have actually known is how Ring Around the Rosie was fucking really
Yeah.
dark. So I'm very excited to hear about some of the actual phrases because I don't, I'm not going around singing "Ring Around the Rosie," but I am going around saying that shit gave me goosebumps and shit like
Yeah,
that.
there's a lot of dark things behind a lot of these. We won't go into too many of those ones necessarily, or at least in this one in depth, but we will cover a lot of the popular ones. But yeah, there's a lot of darkness in the history of the world. Let's just put it that way. So let's go to begin here. I have a few right off the bat that Josh, you have reached out personally and said that you're curious on. And the first one being Goosebumps. Out of curiosity, do you have any idea what the origins of this one might be?
I have no idea. If I had to make up a guess, I would either say that maybe like a goose, if it's killed and its feathers are removed, that it would have a bumpy skin. That's literally the only thing that could come to mind because I have no other idea why they would be named that.
That's fair. Josh, Isaiah.
I've got no clue. I've got
Go
no
ahead.
clue on where that come from.
I
Wait,
get
I
that.
think
We know what Goosebumps are, though, right?
yeah, because I have also heard it called Goose Skin. So maybe the goose has
I've
bumpy
never
skin.
heard that.
Yeah, I've heard
Okay.
people call it Goose
We're
Skin.
pretty close. So the phrase goosebumps derives from the phenomenon associated with the goose skin. Pretty much is what Isaiah said. Goose feathers grow from the pores on the goose's epidermis, and they resemble human hair follicles. And when those feathers are plucked, its skin's protrusions are like essentially when humans get bumps from being scared.
Nope.
There you go.
Nope.
What do you
Could
mean?
you
No?
imagine? Look at your arm
It's
and then
fine.
imagine a feather just growing out of that. No, fuck that.
It's
Do you
your
think-
yeah.
I don't
It's your
fuck with
core.
geese.
Instead of a black head, you got a feather.
A feather. Mm-mm.
Do you think of the first time someone discovered that, like they were taking the feather off of a goose and they felt its skin and they were like, "Whoa!" And then they got goosebumps and they're like,
I'm part
"Goosebumps."
goose.
Well,
That's
I
how
get
it
the
was. That's when
feather.
it was coined, right there, right then and there.
Exactly, trademark. Uh, I don't know. There's a lot of these that will go through the list that I've honestly I don't even know how this would have became public knowledge across the world, but we'll see. The second one, which I think is probably one of the more popular ones that we've heard, kill two birds with one stone. Of course, sort of the saying for being able to knock out two things or knock out two objectives doing one thing. Um, the present form of this comes back as far as 1656. And it's believed to originate in the story of, and just as the previous years, we're going to continue to probably butcher a lot of these names because I don't know pronunciations.
Hell yeah.
So this originates from the story of Delaeus and Icarus from Greek mythology. Dithæus killed two birds with one stone in order to get the feathers of the birds and make wings. The father and son who escaped from the labyrinth on Crete by those made wings were flying out. So essentially, this Greek god made those wings, killed two birds, allowed them to fly out from this labyrinth using it. Um, and it's supposedly even heard back farther in 1546 and taken from another saying called saying, "I will learn to stop two gapes with one bush." So sort of along the same lines of you're going to accomplish two things by doing the same one thing.
Yeah, I think the two birds one is a little bit easier to understand.
Yeah.
I gotta stop them gapes.
Got to stop the gapes with the bush. Moving on, we have beating a dead horse, which also I think this one might be probably one of the more ones that we hear every single day. So this is originally deriving from the UK phrase flogging a dead horse. It's most commonly probably, well, I should say there's a couple different theories behind this one. The first one is in the racehorsing scene. And racehorsing, of course, has been gone back centuries. And this can go back from when jockeys would use the riding crop to beat the horse in order to run faster. And essentially, when the horse would get too exhausted, it would just be considered dead. So you were beating that dead horse with the crop,
Oh,
essentially.
wow. Okay.
Um, and then later on in the mid 19th century, an English politician named John Bright used the saying, and it was the first recorded mention of the saying in 1859, when he was essentially saying that the campaign he was running was beating a dead horse because they were just losing.
Interesting. So I've
Mm.
always envisioned it as like the South Park clip, right, where like the guy's actually beating a dead horse on the ground with a bat. But in reality, the horse was still alive. It was just dead in terms of the
Right.
race.
As in
Yeah.
terms of it cannot run any faster or longer.
Wow. Okay, that's good to know.
What do you gain from beating the dead horse in your
Like an
scenario?
actual dead horse, nothing. But
Yeah.
South Park does its
Well, that,
thing.
yeah, I mean that's the whole point, right? Beating the dead horse, like there is no purpose. That's why they tell you not to beat a dead
I mean,
horse.
that's fair. That's fair. Uh, the next one, which I actually questioned you, Josh, on the first time that you mentioned
Oh
it.
boy.
There's more than a one way to skin a cat. This is the first time I've ever heard this saying.
Really? I've heard this one a
Absolutely.
few times. Yeah.
Yes, please, Isaiah, defend me.
I got your back, bro. No, I've heard that. There's more than one way to skin a cat. It's like means like there's more than one way to do something.
Mhm.
So if Josh is like, I'm gonna take this to do this and do that, and I'm like, I'm gonna do this and then that, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, I honestly, I mean, I was familiar with the phrase, but I've become much more familiar with it because of the backlash from like animal rights
Skinning
activist groups and
cats?
stuff who are
Yeah, I
like,
bet.
"Don't say one way to skin a cat; it promotes cat violence." Say this instead.
That's
So that's how I
hilarious.
became more familiar with it. I mean, it's already on its own a pretty gruesome saying. So I was wondering why it became a popularized thing.
Yeah. So the oldest known use of this phrase was in the work Way Down East by Seba Smith, which was in 1854. Um, I was able to do some research, and it seemed that it's originally gotten its roots in a 17th century proverb, which was a little bit different. That proverb was, "There are more ways to kill a dog than hanging."
Oh my
So
god,
along the
even more
same line,
brutal.
but what is actually sort of funny with it, or fun, quote unquote, with the saying, is that it sort of seems like it became an author joke along the lines that essentially authors would try to use it in some sort of fashion in their works going forward. I saw some authors would use, there are more ways to kill a cat than choking it with cream, which that was found in the 1830s. Mark Twain even got on it, or in the 1889, in a Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's court, which she wrote, she was wise, subtle, and knew more than one way to skin a cat. And there was even some sayings that said, uh, choking a cat with butter, or killing a dog with pudding, that went farther back.
So it was like author's version of the Super Troopers joke where they try to say
Essentially,
meow at the pullover.
essentially, essentially, just became a running joke for authors, and just seeing how absurd you can make that phrase. It seems.
Yeah,
Wow.
that sounds about right.
Moving on, and this one's, I guess, getting into a little bit darker side of things here. We can move on to pulling one's leg. Um, so from what I've seen, a lot of what I've come across has been two theories, but there's not really any evidence to support either. So I don't really know the origin of this. So the first one is that thieves used to pull legs to trip people back in the medieval and Victorian days, to where they would literally pull one's leg, and then their group of thieves would jump the person that they pulled, rob them, or essentially do whatever they need to, and then leave them. So that's where one leg's pulling one's leg first originated. But then I also saw it around the 18th century. So in 1783, a lot of the executions in England were done by hanging. And there's specific suspension bridge that was used. And I guess there's two ways to hang people, prisoners. One is a short hanging method, and one's a long hanging method. The long hanging method allows the neck to break during the process, or the short hanging method doesn't. But during the short hanging method, where essentially the prisoners are choking and essentially waiting there in agony, people would jump on their legs and pull down to help them choke faster to death,
Oh
essentially.
my god.
So people would ask to help pull one's leg to help essentially alleviate what they're feeling during that time.
Neither of those sounds like someone pulling a joke on you.
Yeah, dude, you're
Absolutely not.
pulling my leg. No, dude, you're fucking
No,
murdering me.
which is which is why there's a lot of dispute and if any of those is the true meaning behind how that phrase came about. Because of course none of those mean the sort of joking saying that you would get from that. Moving on, paying through the nose. I've never heard this one either. Have either of you guys have heard this
Yeah.
Yeah,
one?
I've heard them
Damn,
paying
what
through
the
the
hell?
nose.
Damn. All right. So paying through the nose is an idiom which means to pay more than something is worth or to pay an exorbitant price for. The origin of the phrase pays through the nose is quite murky, though it seems to be associated in some way to paying of taxes. When the Danes conquered Ireland in the 19th century, they took a census by counting noses. And essentially, each nose was essentially someone in the household that had to pay taxes. Uh, and there's a myth that anyone who did not pay their nose tax had their nose split in punishment. Though there's little to support this, there's actually a little bit of old historical physical data to support this, which I don't sort of understand that. They say there's no physical data, but also a little bit. Um, but that's sort of where the saying came from, of course, being taxes.
I don't even understand. Like, splitting somebody's nose sounds fucking gruesome. Like, that is.
Also, just punching someone straight in the nose.
Yeah, that is fucked up. Well, yeah, I mean, if it's punching somebody in the nose, then that's like, okay, it's not as gruesome. But if they're literally split your nose in half, bro, like cut that shit.
Yeah.
Just no,
Straight down.
not interested.
So this last one here, and this is probably the most interesting one for me, is running amok. So of course, running amok is described as acting or behaving disruptly or uncontrollably. Um, have either of you heard of this? This is actually one that I've heard, even though I haven't heard the last three or so. This is one I have heard.
I've heard this one as well.
Yeah, I've definitely heard it. No clue what a muck means, but I've heard the phrase for sure.
Yeah, so amok essentially describes acting or behaving disruptively or uncontrollably. The word actually derives from a Southeast Asian language, a traditional meaning an episode of sudden mass assault against people or objects, and it's usually by a single individual, following by a period of brooding, which traditionally been regarding occurring especially in the Malaysian culture that this happens. The syndrome amok is even actually found in the Diagnostics and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, or the DSM-TR. So it is a classified disorder by medical professionals. According to Malaysian and Indonesian cultures, amok was a rooted, deep spiritual belief. They believe that amok was caused by, and again, another name I'm going to completely butcher, and I'm sorry, Hirutu Bilin, which was an evil tiger spirit that entered one's body and caused horrendous acts. As a result of this belief, those in Malaysian culture tolerated amok and dealt with the after effects with no ill will towards those assailants. This is also considered a cultural bound syndrome for Malaysia, Indonesia, and essentially, people would just go crazy, have massacres, sudden violent outfits against others in their villages, completely out of whim. And essentially, that's what these would be described as amok happenings.
That sounds like Nova,
Damn.
bro.
And
That's
an,
Nova.
an early Western description of the practice appears in the journals of British explorer Captain James Cook, who counted amok firsthand in 1770 during a voyage around the world. Cook writes in his diaries of an individual behaving in a reckless, violent manner without cause and indiscriminately killing and maiming villagers and animals in a frenzied attack. that he witnessed. It is also widely accepted, or also seen essentially, that it doesn't seem to necessarily affect women and children. It seems to be specifically a male syndrome, um, or sort of event. Running amok would thus be a way of escaping the world, um, or sort of like a very barbaric way of escaping one's problems. It seems from people who have it, they seem to sort of go into this very predatorial mode, where they seem like their only ways to continue is to attack, or essentially kill themselves. Sort of that fight or flight circumstance that they just feel like they all of a sudden have rushing through their body. Uh, I sort of how we talked before about going postal, going ballistics with our other series. That's sort of along the same lines of going amok or running amok. That's sort of just these extremely violent episodes. But it's crazy that this specific phrase has earned its way into the DSM IVTR, essentially a mental disorders book that's highly respected.
Yeah.
Yeah, they use the DSM, depending on the version, to diagnose what different people
Yeah,
have.
and
Yeah,
it's
that's
changing
crazy.
all the time. Yeah, but this is one that's one saying that has seems to have scientific background and scientific findings with it, which is absolutely nuts.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever heard it used. So, like, I've always thought of kids, like kids running amok. Like, oh, these kids are running amok. They're going crazy at the,
Yeah.
family reunion or whatever, bruh. But
Mhm.
I never knew that it was like violent. These kids are being violent towards one another or everyone around.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
absolutely insane. That's crazy that it has such like a deep origin as well, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, and was that the last one, Zay?
That was the last one.
All right. Well, thank you for that information. That's definitely going to make me have a different perspective when I'm using some of these phrases. So I think especially the pulling one's leg and paying through the nose, a much more violent background than I would have guessed. So, yeah, thank you for that information.
Are you going to
And
continue to picture the South Park episode when somebody says beating a dead horse, or are you going to think of jockeys in races from now
yeah, I'm
on?
probably going to think of the jockey. Yeah, that's. I mean, it's a. I
The South
understand what
Park
they're
one's
saying.
just better to think of. It's a
Yeah.
little bit more friendlier.
South Park is like, if I feel like if the South Park one is doing it more so out of like stubbornness, like because the horse is dead, right? But you're still like trying to beat it. As to where the racing one is more out of like a desperation type of like, dude, we get what you're trying to do, but just stop beating a dead horse,
Right,
Yeah.
I get
So
what you're
kind of
trying to
two
say,
different
yeah.
meanings for the same saying there, I think. But yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that my favorite one out of the ones that we went for was fucking Goosebumps, bro. Just now I
So
can never
easy,
picture
yeah.
that like the pores on my face would have feathers coming out and be like, no, I'm cool.
I'll never be able to read the books the same way again.
Never look at a goose the same way.
They got human skin under all those feathers, bro.
Yeah, just gotta rip it off them.